welcome to the Howard and ChinWon Reinhardt Peony Garden at the University of Montana. The idea of this garden was started probably in the making over 10 years ago, with ideas floating, and we finally got a group of people, 5 people, who were really anxious to get this going and started. And as of 2019, we got this garden going and got a committee going and got the money raised to get it started. And now we have over 230 peonies in this garden. 2018, that's right. 2018 is when we got together and ordered the peonies from Oregon and bought them some locally and planted them the fall of 2018. And this is will be the second summer of their growing, and they're all named peonies, or almost all of them are named. 200 different varieties, but 230 different plants. We have some plants that are duplicated for purposes because that's what Howard and ChinWon wanted. They wanted some to be duplicated, more than one plant. Howard was a math professor at the U for 40 years, and plus he was dean of the Davidson's Honor College, wasn't he?
Dean of the College of Arts.
Or College of Arts and Sciences, yes. And ChinWon, his wife, helped start the farmers market on Railroad Street, and she started the Pea Green Boat. And another friend, right. So they were instrumental. So they've done a lot. They also helped the Hmong people out quite a bit, didn't they? With them, yeah. Mm-hmm. So. And they raised peonies. They had Howard and ChinWon had and still have a peony party the last Wednesday of June every year at their house. They've got over 100 peonies in their house, and we go up there to see them and get to be honored with all their plants that they have. They have some gorgeous ones, and of course it's kind of their thing. The peonies, they're kind of their flower. So just thought this was neat. They donated some peonies for the garden, Howard and ChinWon. They're over here, the heritage peonies. There are 3 white ones, 2 pink ones, and we understand that as of this week, I guess we're getting another one. Somebody from a friend of theirs from Michigan is giving us one to plant in here in honor of them. And what else? Let's see.
Yeah, that new peony, we don't know its name yet, but it's been FedExed from Michigan, from Ann Arbor, where Michigan. They both did. Howard and ChinWon both studied.
And yeah, and Ann Arbor happens to be the place where one of the largest peony gardens in the U.S., in North America, is there, and one of the oldest. This garden is kind of unique in the sense that all these peonies are newer. The one in Ann Arbor, Michigan, they said they're older peonies. Well, there's some old peonies in here too, very old, 1800s and older, but it has some newer ones too. We have a couple 2013s. What else? I don't know if we have a 2015 or not, but a couple newer ones, a number of newer ones. So the ranges of the peonies, the prices are anywhere from $10 to $12 up to $80, $90 for some of them, depending on the availability and how they produce and so on. So I've seen in catalogs where they've run up to $500 for one root, and we don't have any of those in this garden. We aren't able to get that. So, and some that are $300. But anyhow, yeah. Speaking of the peonies, now talking about them specifically, you'll see right now here in April, the first part of April, you can see the heights of some of these plants. They're kind of like 5 to 7 inches for some. Some are not out of the ground yet, and some are just peeking out of 1 inch or 2 inches up. And some of them, we have one here that has a bud on it as of April. It's a Japanese fernleaf peony, and we have and those are very early peonies. A peony season can go from very early to mid-season bloom to late season bloom. And some of the very earlier ones will probably be blooming, I would say, in a couple weeks. Which would be before May or early May. Might even be first part of May. So people say, well, peonies are always June blooming. Not necessarily. If you have a season of peony bloom, a good season, it can range up to 8 weeks for blooming. So that's why you got to keep coming back to see. Because now if you come the first part of May, some of these early peonies at the corners will be blooming then, and then that's when the season starts, and then they really start coming in to bloom.
Did Howard and ChinWon, they sort of wanted very much to have a grouping of these?
Right. This particular peony right here, there are 3 of them. It's Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt. It happens to be ChinWon's favorite peony, and it is a gorgeous peony. It's pink. And we put 3 of them next to the rock with the plaque here that honors them. There is a plaque here that honors them. And I think Mrs. FDR, we call it for short, is probably a mid-season blooming peony. Some of them we noticed in the garden. There's one over here. I don't know if you can focus over here or not. Right here. This one last year came up early and was big right away. This is Coral Sunset, or excuse me, Pink Hawaiian Coral. It's one of the biggest ones, and one of the first to come up like that, real robust and vigorous, which is kind of neat, and we can kind of gear our garden from what that's doing. And so it's amazing, yeah. And of course, it's one that I think, Steve, do you remember right offhand, it does not need a cage, right, for support.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You can tell by the stems how thick the stems are. Generally, if they've got real thick stems, they generally don't need support. They can support themselves. And here's one here that's Peonia peregrina. I said, now we don't have really old one. This is an old one. This is a species, and it's 1762?
1768.
1768. Very old peony. Came from the Mediterranean region in Europe. So
it's actually probably thousands of years old.
Probably is. That's when they first, some of the botanists from England, Great Britain, came down and found it and brought it back to England. So therefore, it's...
So is that our oldest?
It's the oldest one that we know of in the garden here. Yeah. We do have some other species, but they're not up yet, and we're having trouble with them. So, but yeah, there's one down here with a cage on it. That's a very early blooming one. It's called Chalice. It's a white single, and supposedly deer don't like to eat them. But Steve and I found out that they chewed on that one. Stevie, is this one broken here? Is there one broken right here?
I don't know. Oh, it looks like it. What one is that?
Maybe not. Just leave it. Don't touch it because it may grow.
Yeah, it's broken off totally. This is training for our visitors that they shouldn't break the peonies.
See, we don't like for them to be in the garden, but yeah, right now we have a peony right here. It's called Itoba. I think it's this one. It's an early blooming. It's a fern-leaf peony. And it looks like rhubarb, the red stems and then the green leaves. They're not solid leaves. They're real ferny looking leaves. But it's this one right here. This is another fern-leaf peony.
Get out of the light or shadow, maybe.
Yeah. But it's really kind of unique in seeing the red stems.
The buds,
no, that's not the one. This one right here.
I know, but are these blooms? Buds?
Yeah, those are buds. These are 2 fern-leaf ones that'll be early blooming.
What's fern-leaf mean?
The leaves are real fine. And we have about, 5 forms of peonies, the different forms of peony flower, anywhere from a single to a Japanese to an anemone to a semi-double to a double, and then a balm, they call them, a balm. They all have certain characteristics, and our sign that we're going to have over there will explain all those different kinds of flower forms. Also, the bushes, there are different bushes of peonies. The leaves look different on all the plants. In some cases, you can tell what kind of peony it is or what it's going to be just by the foliage. This is a tree peony here, has wooden stems. And the only thing it loses every year are just the leaves, but the wooden stems stay.
Some tree peonies can get, 6 feet tall?
Yeah, it depends on where they are, where they're grown. In Oregon, on the coast, in humid, milder climates, they do much, much better. Obviously, they get much bigger, but here in Montana, we'll probably get them about 3 and 4 feet tall. I've seen pink. I saw a pink tree peony down in Lolo many years ago that was about 6 feet tall, and the flowers are quite big on them. We have tree peonies there in the center of the triangular bed too, with those with the cages. those are all tree peonies, and we've got those doubly protected.
The idea of a tree peony in either back of a garden or the middle of a garden, is that so they can be the centerpieces and then they wouldn't obliterate the view of other peonies?
Yeah. We have some that we have to replace. This one, we're having trouble with this one, red anemone. It wasn't a real heavy producer last year. Still hasn't come up this year. It may. We hope it will. Notice this one here, it's called nosegay. It's a pink one, single. Look how vigorous the foliage is on that one. As opposed to sorbet, it's going to be later in bloom, and it's just peeking through now.
So that would be presumably always an earlier peony?
Yeah, these that are like that would probably be an earlier blooming one. And of course, a lot of the fern leaf ones are. It's exciting to just come up and see them growing, see them coming, even if they're not blooming now, just to see what they look like. And these are just temporary markers. We're going to have different markers on these peonies, a little more permanent. When we established this bed, we even had different markers for just planting them. There were markers like this metal thing here, and we pull those out and we're going to put some brand new metal ones in.
Tell us a little bit about, normally deer don't eat them.
Yeah, right here. This one, if you can film in close, this is called chalice. It's that early white one I told you about. We saw 2 weeks ago where a deer had just nibbled on it. It's probably maybe a deer who didn't know what he was eating and just decided to test it. He spit out the flower, or the leaves, the parts. He spit them out on the ground.
So now we can see this is probably not going to produce much because it got chomped off, but these will be fine. And there's another little chomp back here.
Just stem, yeah, if it's just stem.
Will they maybe branch out, or they're...
No, not this year. They're done for this year. Anything that's broken off now, if you were to go in and smash all of those, that plant probably wouldn't even grow this year. And it wouldn't be making chlorophyll or food for the root for next year, which is too bad because we do need that. They do need that. What else can I say? Peonies, they range in color from white to cream to pink, dark pink, light pink, all different kinds of red to black red to raspberry red, different shades of reds and pinks. And what else can you say about the colors, Steve? They're just yellow, and we've got some orange ones in here.
Yellow are quite rare.
Well, not necessarily rare, but we had a beautiful one over there. What was the name of it? It wasn't Goldilocks. It was, what?
Sunny Girl?
Sunny Girl. Oh, it's a gorgeous yellow one over there. It was probably one of my favorite from last year. We've even got some lavender ones in here. So if people are into peonies at all and wanting to know what kinds they can get in their homes, they'll have the names. Well, they can come up here, they can visit, they can sit. Notice the names and say, hey, this one is Promenade, I like this one, and then try to get it. Try to order them for yourselves, and it's kind of interesting that way. And a lot of people have told us they didn't know there were so many different kinds of peonies. There are thousands of different kinds of peonies, and there are a lot of wild ones. I think there are 30 to 40. They think botanists who think in the wild species peonies. And we have one here in the garden that is native to North America. Can you go down there and see this one? Peony brownii.
Oh yeah, that's extraordinary. There's only two, you can tell there.
It's right here. It's a wild one. It was given to us by a lady from Idaho, or Clarkston, Washington, I guess. See if you can focus in on the little green one there. It's called Peony brownii. It's burgundy and green. The flower is about, about 3 inches in diameter. It's a knotting. It hangs upside down. It's not a pretty peony. Is
that called pendulum or something?
Yeah, pendulum, I guess. It's not, but it's one of the two native to North America. And they happen to grow. They're supposed to be growing in wild in Montana. I've never seen any wild in our state, and I'm a native here, lived here my whole life. But this one came from Idaho, I think, over by Hell's Canyon is where it came from. But it is native, and we've had it for 3 years now, because it was one of the first ones we got to put in this garden. And
last summer it was very shy, right, about coming up? up.
Yeah, it finally came up. This year it's doing much better. It's going to take it a while to get going, established. So
The idea of it being a native peony, maybe you can tell that this is part of the state of Montana Arboretum, and it's designated by the legislature.
yeah, this is, and it's neat. I hope that someday, I don't know if that this will be incorporated into all that. I think that it's already on the tour. Kelly put it on the tour for when they give tours of the flora and fauna, or the flowers around campus. This, I think, is going to be on it, or maybe she just tells them to come here and see this when it's blooming time.
Kelly was very excited that she knew all about the native peony, and she said if we can get the native peony, because there's only one, except for the California one, but
Californica, Peonia californica, which is a white one, and we don't know how hardy it is here.
But there's only about 30 species peonies in the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're species, they have to be original still, from the original rootstock, right? No hybridization at all. And so Kelly was very excited that we were going to have a native plant, because everything else is from China or Europe or everywhere.
Or Japan.
Japan. So maybe you could tell about, do we have any of the Itos that would show that they're Ito or anything like that?
Well, an Ito is just basically an herbaceous peony. Herbaceous means that the whole plant dies to the ground every year, as opposed to a tree peony, which does not.
Right.
And Itos are herbaceous. There's no way you can really tell, except for when they come up, and their foliage is a little more cut than a regular peony. How do I say that? Not as cut as a fern leaf peony, but the indentations are a little sharper.
Like a maple leaf or something.
It's hard to explain until you just actually see them out, and I'm sure later on when they're up and doing that, that'd be easier to explain that. You get more colors with Ito peonies. More we got a lilac one. We have a deep purple one, which you can get a deep purple one over there. First arrival is a lilac one. I forget the name.
But an Ito, I was reading, you can help, but I was reading about the Ito cover being a cross between the tree peony and the herbaceous peony. Mm-hmm. So it really has double parentage, but it's very difficult to do. So it wasn't just like the pollen. This gentleman in Japan back in 1948 maybe, or maybe even a little bit earlier, he created this
Ito was his name.
Genetic splicing almost, or something, but we're not the experts of that. But it started a whole new variety that never existed until this gentleman, Mr. Ito. Mr. Ito did it, and he was thrilled when after the war it finally started to take hold on the planet. And it was a friendly use of something spreading around the planet as opposed to what we're experiencing now. So
I think I forgot to mention that peonies, we've even seen black peonies. They're so dark red that they're black. And Commando is one of them that is a black red peony. It's right here. It's only got 2 on it this year. It's not a real fast grower, but in the back. D11 Commando. It's a black red. And we saw some black ones last summer that were really black, but we haven't been able to get, one of them's I think $100 to buy just a root of it. So we have some donated by the Stickney family.
And they're friends of Howard.
Right, they're white ones. We don't know the names of those. We hope to get the names of those when...
we didn't see them bloom yet. Right?
No, they hadn't bloomed yet. And they're those 5 right there. And we're going to have a rock sitting here. One of those rocks will be moved here, and so those will be there. But yeah. Howard and ChinWon, they donated 2 other peonies too, Cytherea and Friendship. We have Kinnikinick planted in between. Hopefully as the ground cover will take over, and we kind of want that to happen. I've noticed that they kind of gone through the winter a little bit rough. They're a little bit in bad shape. We may have to replace some of those, I don't know. Steve and I this spring, or was it 3 weeks ago, we came in and took on our hands and knees, which is kind of neat. We took every one of the bark away from them, because they're not supposed to be planted deep. The eyes are not supposed to be deep at all. And
peonies won't bloom if they're planted this deep below the soil.
The eyes.
The eyes, which are the bloom, like potato sprouts. But if even the mulch gets too thick on top of them, they might decide not to bloom because they spend all their energy just cutting through to get up to the surface.
And I think we've had people say, man, these peonies are way ahead of what else they've seen in Missoula, as I told you earlier. And I think that's partly the reason why, because we exposed them early. You know, 3 weeks ago we started taking the bark away and exposing them. And if you get a close-up, I don't know if you can, to some of them, the roots are very shallow. Which here's one that shows how shallow, Catherine. See, here's the root, the top of the root. No, that isn't the top of the root. That's more bark that we didn't get off. Well, we have some. Here, right here, this one. See there? That's the top of it. And this one, the top of it is right there. So if you look at the top, and so they're right there, the eyes.
We're actually pretty amazed because last year maybe you get one shoot for each bulb, maybe two, maybe three even, but now they're like 7 and 10. And
this one had one last year, and it's probably not a real good producer yet. This one had one stem that came up, and Chocolate Soldier. It's got two. Canary Brilliance, which is a yellow-orange one, had, I think, 2. Red Grace had 2, a little one and a big one, and it bloomed last year. It's a gorgeous red. And it's got 5 there, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5. And some, we've had, these guys didn't have much, and now they really, but notice how they're the fern leaf, and you can even see the buds on them, those, which is kind of neat.
So there's going to be a directory, but because everything's on hold and maybe the sign company hasn't gotten back to us to make the sign, but our designer is working on it nevertheless. And there'll be a sign over here in front of that tree where the little gravels go up against the blocks. And that sign will be...
That'll be explaining all the different forms of flowers and all that. So somebody asked me about a plant, when will it bloom, or when will... I could tell you somewhat just by knowing what has happened in the past when some of these will bloom. Some will bloom before others and some will bloom after others, but not 100% knowledgeable yet on knowing. Most of them are probably mid-season though. But
when the garden was laid out, we tried to have it laid out so that not everything was blooming. Something would be blooming everywhere. Madeline Mazursky helped us, and
yeah, well, she used a computer and she designed it so we had gave her all the information of every peony, its characteristics, its height, its color, its form, flower form, when it blooms, and she was able to put all this into a computer, and it blah blah blah, blah did all of its stuff and came out with this kind of a design. So it was a computer system that set up that did this to design. So these are all put in here strategically for certain reasons so that we should have color throughout this whole bed. The Japanese pink fernleaf peony up there will be one of the first ones to bloom, as these 2 here. There are 2 over there that are going to be early bloom. There's one over here, smoothie eye, and there are a couple over in that bed over there that are going to be early for blooming. And they're all fernleaf. They're all fernleaf ones. And they're the early ones, except for Chalice. Chalice is, as I've said before, this white one is an early one. It was gorgeous last year. It had 3 white ones on it.